Howdy y'all, this is DyslexicReader again, and today we're going to be reviewing The Wheel of Time, a book series written by the great and late Robert Jordan. This is an epic fantasy about the main character Rand al'Thor and his friends as they go through life in the preparation for what is known as the last battle between Rand al'Thor and the Dark One. There are about 14 books in the series, and the first 11 were written purely by Robert Jordan. However, after he finished his 11th book, he found out that he was going to be dying soon, and so he and his wife and his one of his sons, I believe, wrote down a bunch of notes and did everything they could to get as much information out as they could. His wife, Harriet, then went and contacted another epic fantasy writer by the name of Brandon Sanderson. And with the notes from Harriet, Brandon was able to write the last book, which actually was so big that it took 3 books they had to break it down into 3 books. Even though all that occurred, Robert Jordan still wrote the last chapter in the book, and it sounds awesome. Or it is awesome. So, one of the things I like about this book series is it has a very unique magic system called channeling. Now, channeling for men and women is different, and not everyone can do it. Only very, very few. It's very rare, the person who can channel. For men, it's described as a fight with extreme conditions. Like, whenever men describe it, they describe it as sensations like, I'm freezing while I'm in a pool of lava, or I'm in a pool of magma. It's a very extreme conditions, and they're fighting the entire time. They have to dominate the power. And for men, they call it the one power. For women, it is called the true power. The true source. And it is described in gentle metaphors like embracing and surrendering to a stream, or being a rosebud that opens up to the light of the sun, the warmth of the sun. Now, both sides of the power the power is broken down into 3 to 5 basic elements, which are fire, earth, air, water, and spirit. Someone who knows how to channel can combine these elements like threads, and they can weave these threads together, and the end result is some kind of magical something that occurs. Now, this is the original concept that fascinated me whenever I was a kid, or whenever I was a sophomore in high school. Because I had always liked magic. The concepts of magic, sword fighting, things like that was always fun to me. But I was getting really tired and bored with wizards and elves and dwarves and things like that. So whenever my oldest brother Nathan introduced me to The Wheel of Time, and I got to see what a different style of magic was like, it was very fascinating to me, and that's what got me hooked. It gave me a very fresh outlook on how magic could be applied. Overall, I could say that I really enjoyed the book series. Towards around books 7 through 10, I can't remember exactly which books they are. They kind of drag a little bit. It kind of felt like Robert Jordan was kind of just stretching it out more than he needed to. But overall, those books were still enjoyable, and some very interesting things still occurred during those books. The last book, however, I thought was just ridiculously amazing. It is by far my favorite book in the entire series. Partially because, just like everything does in the last chapter or last book, everything gets wrapped up. However, the way things get wrapped up aren't always the ways that I was expecting. So there were multiple things I didn't see coming, and I just liked the way that it was finished. And also largely because at least 3/4 of the book are about fighting and battle, and it's just total carnage, and it's awesome. There were multiple times that I laughed during the entire series from the antics of the different characters, especially Matt. There were also multiple times that I would cry, because Robert and Brandon did an amazing job of making you feel like you knew the characters. As you can expect, after 14 books, you feel like you know all the characters very, very well. Something as minor as a simple draft horse from book 1 all the way to the end of book 14 plays an important role. And you can see it throughout each of the books, just the simple horse. And even into the very last book, that simple horse still plays a very important role. And it's just really interesting and fun. So my favorite character in the series was a character named Perrin Abara, which is Randall Thor's friend. His storyline is by far my favorite. And then after Perrin, probably my second favorite character would be Matcham Cawthon, which is another friend of Matt. Perrin and Matt are Randall Thor's two best friends, and watching them go through their storylines is hysterical. They eventually all separate and then come back together at some point, and just the dialogue and the way they interact with each other from when they're kids to a couple of years later is all really fun and hysterical. And Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan do a great job of tying things back together. So in book 14, you might see jokes from book 1, and it's really funny. So this is The Wheel of Time. It is the first book series that I started reading that I really enjoyed. So if you've read The Wheel of Time and you agree with this review, then let me know in the comments below. If you've read it, I want to know who your favorite character is and which book was your favorite book in the series. Next time, I'll be reviewing one of my favorite books. It's definitely in my top 5. It's called Ready Player One. Until then,